Yo, whoever made up this leak, your mom's up. I have hit the point where I have given up on Johto getting a new game anytime soon. And it's not out of despair, I actually do think it's logical. The more I think about it, the more I understand the reasons why. I think Gen 2 is in a really complicated space. It relied so heavily on Kanto Pokemon and Kanto post-games and the Kanto villains, but it's never gonna quite have that nostalgia like Gen 1. Understandably so. Gen 2 functioned as a, direct sequel to Gen 1. And while their release was a big deal, I don't think it stands out for either most millennials or most Gen Z as their definitive first experience. There's a small handful of people that actually started with Gold, Silver, or Crystal, I think particularly in the late 90s. Actually, even though I had a Game Boy Color and Gold, Silver, and Crystal had already been released, I started with Blue. My sisters had Silver and Crystal, and I think they actually convinced my mom to get me a used copy of Blue from GameStop once I, knew how to read. And also they made me start with Bulbasaur because I wasn't allowed to use the starters that they used. Was that a universal youngest child experience? Let me know in the comments. I did play Silver eventually, and I think it sticks out to me because by the time I played Silver, I was actually old enough to, strategize and play the game properly, not just train up like a level 70 Venusaur. As for Gen Z, by the time they were old enough to read and appreciate the games, it was the GBA era, and it was Gen 3. Then they'd get a Kanto remake, making memories on Victory Road, but never really in Ilex Forest. They know the power of nostalgia is real, so now you have a generation of Pokemon fans that still love Kanto and they love Hoenn, but Johto kinda passed them by just because there wasn't a Johto game on the Game Boy Color. Gen 2 wouldn't get a remake until the late DS era, with the absolutely amazing Heart Gold and Soul Silver. They sold well and are considered some of the highest regarded Pokemon games of all time. I still have my full in-box copy with the Pokewalker, but again, this was after Diamond and Pearl and Sandwich by Black and White. I'm not really surprised that out of those three, these two games sold the least well, even though they're fantastic. Even if we got a kind of lazy remake like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it would be great because Heart Gold and Soul Silver are just great. It had the mechanics that relied on the DS, sure, but so did the original Gen 4. But I digress. Pokemon is also becoming much more story-focused than it ever used to be. And part of why Johto is so beloved is that it's really based on environmental storytelling and atmosphere, and all the legends attached to the land. But the plot itself isn't particularly strong. There is a through line about Team Rocket thrown in, but even that doesn't necessarily end in a super cool, satisfying boss fight that's super memorable. Crystal and the DS remakes improved this by expanding on the characters, but even those cutscenes between Giovanni and his son were just that. They were cutscenes. They were atmospheric details. It didn't culminate in much other than just giving Silver some depth. With all this lore, a Pokemon Legends game would have been perfect. Celebi is literally a time traveler. But what I just described would be a Pokemon Legends game, set in the past right around the dawn of Pokemon battles and championships, and that is something Legends Arceus already gave us. So, while hearing from those leaks, if they're to be fully believed, that we were supposed to get Legends Johto and didn't, it did hurt my soul, but I actually respect the Legends series for saying, no, we're gonna do something different. And Legends ZA was a blast and has some of the best characters in story and comedy we've ever gotten from a Pokemon game. So, oh my god, I want Pokemon Legends Johto so bad, but I get it. That isn't to say there hasn't been a lot of love for Gen 2 lately. There definitely has. We're seeing the legendary dogs and starters pop up in all the surrounding media and the spin-offs. Our Johto starters have been represented in both Legends games. The legendary beasts in the cards and Paldea and now even Pokemon Sleep. Lugia's big game, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, is coming to NSO. It completely left Pokemon Coliseum behind. I like seeing my old favorites getting their due, even if I'm just kinda yearning to go back to Goldenrod City and play the bug catching contest. I think the next generation deserves to be traumatized by Whitney's Miltank just like the rest of us. But they teased me so hard when the Gen 10 trailer started. Like, when one of the first things you saw was a sketchbook and a sketch of the Burnt Tower and Umbreon and Espeon and a Kimono Girl, I was like, this is it. This is my Johto remake. We're getting a Johto game. And then it kept going and I stopped being Delulu. Gen 2 Pokemon were all over that direct, but I kind of now interpret it more like we want to give these Pokemon some love because we are not going back to this region anytime soon. This is the first video as we celebrate PokeMarch here on Bridget's Never Played, in honor of Pokemon's birthday being February 27th and my birthday being March 6th. Yes, me and Pokemon share a birthday week. We will be playing my favorite franchise all month. From Fire Red to Pokopia to maybe some hidden gems, fun merch, and questionable remakes that I've never played. We're celebrating every week, so please like, subscribe, and comment. Please comment. I'm an extrovert. I really like to yap.